The operators, grabbing their respirators, would remain at the helm of the runaway reactor. The radiation level inside the containment dome was reading 10,000 rems per hour. A dose so high, only minutes of exposure would prove fatal. For 4 hours, 3 Mile Island had smoldered in silence. Shortly after 8 a.m., a local radio station began picking up the first hints of trouble.
We first learned that something was wrong at 3 Mile Island because a traffic reporter, he's out driving around, and he says, you know, I'm getting things on the scanners here. He says, are you picking this up? I said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, well, apparently they're mobilizing some fire equipment and emergency people at 3 Mile Island. And he said, oh, by the way, there's no steam coming out of the cooling towers. So now I'm thinking, something's really weird going on there. I called 3 Mile Island, and the receptionist had been so harried that morning that she didn't listen to me. She just put me through to the control room. Now I hear all this commotion behind me, you know, in the background. There's a guy on the line. I tell him who I am. And I ask him, is there fire equipment there? And he says, I can't talk now, we've got a problem. And boy, didn't they ever have a problem.
Okay, we have this news bulletin that we're going to get on right now. Here's Mike Pintak.
Okay, thank you, Jim. There is a general emergency at Metropolitan Edison Company's 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant. A utility spokesman says there was a problem with a feed water pump this morning.
As word of the accident slowly leaked to the outside world, the governor of Pennsylvania, Dick Thornburg, learned the news from his aides.
The minute I heard that there had been an accident at a nuclear facility, I knew we were in another dimension.
Thornburg immediately turned to Lieutenant Governor William Scranton III, chair of the state's emergency council.
There had never been anything like this. It wasn't something you could see or feel or taste or touch. We were talking about radiation, but which generated an enormous amount of fear.
3 Mile Island's parent company, Metropolitan Edison, or Met-Ed, told Scranton that no radiation had been detected off plant grounds.
The Metropolitan Edison Company has informed us that there has been an incident at 3 Mile Island, Unit Number 2. Everything is under control. There is and was no danger to public health and safety.
In his first statement to the press, the lieutenant governor confidently reiterated Met-Ed's assurances. He would soon learn that his confidence had been misplaced.
What I had said in the morning was there has been no significant off-site release, only to find out moments later that, in fact, there had been an off-site release. And the indignation that welled up within me was memorable. I still haven't gotten over that. It was at that point that I realized that we could not rely on Metropolitan Edison for the kind of information we needed to make decisions.
Early that afternoon, the national press began converging at 3 Mile Island's observation center.
Satisfied that all my employees acted properly.
Would you characterize this accident as a close...
Met-Ed had never faced a public relations crisis like this. Unprepared for the media onslaught, they chose Jack Herbine, an engineer with no prior press experience, as their spokesman.
The question was, why didn't we notify the people? The incident occurred this morning around 4 o'clock. The safety systems functioned as they should have.
In the first press conference, they were playing down the importance of what had happened in the plant. It was an incident, there was a problem, a valve leaked, the plant overheated, they had to shut the plant down, and they were going to clean it up.
Things are falling off right now. As I've indicated, the coolant injection systems are functioning properly, and we expect soon to be in the cold shutdown condition.
If you had gone home from that first press conference, you would have presumed that the problem would have been cleaned up overnight. I mean, that's the impression they gave us.
I didn't buy it, and there were quite a few other people that didn't buy it.
Radiation releases were of grave concern for Mayor Robert Reed. His community of Middletown lay just upriver from 3 Mile Island.
I remember a man by the name of Herbine And when I asked him about the release and the time of the accident, he more or less looked at it from the standpoint that, Mary, you don't know anything about nuclear energy. I am the expert.
How dangerous did the power company tell you the situation was?
Well, I talked to a representative from the company, and he assured me that there was really nothing that you could be concerned about.
Are you satisfied with that answer? Or do you want some answers?
I think we will get better answers. I was angry from that Wednesday. In fact, I'm still angry. I was just upset with the way things were being handled and the way we were lied to.
That same day, the Federal Nuclear Regulatory Commission set up an emergency center in Bethesda, Maryland, to monitor the accident.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about the other one that they didn't put into operation yet. You need air and you need power, I guess, to keep that thing open.
The NRC also dispatched several inspectors to 3 Mile Island.
As we were walking through the turbine building, which was basically like a ghost town, there was nobody around, we saw these 2 other people from the plant wearing their anti-contamination radiation suits, and they also had their respirator masks on also. This is very abnormal because this is an area of the plant that normally is not contaminated and that you wouldn't need these. And it gave you the impression like there's something very wrong here.
As the NRC inspectors entered the control room, they were shocked by what they saw.
Everybody in the control room was in respirators, and so the communications between the operators and their supervisors and them and us and anybody that you had to talk to on the phone was all pretty difficult because of wearing the respirators.
Everybody was talking through air hoses because they all had air-breathing masks on, and so when they would go to the telephones, they were talking to Washington and trying to tell them what's going on.
And I know there were a couple of times when I just took my respirator off and talked real quickly in the phone and put it back on and said, okay, well, let's do it as quickly as I can, but we just had to try to get the information through.
There was no direct line between the control room and the emergency center in Bethesda. Only 2 regular telephone lines that were continually tied up.
This is an emergency operator, national emergency.
Oh, sir, I have no circuit, so I can't dial the number.
Can you preempt somebody?
Just a minute.
Anyone calling into the control room heard only busy signals.
There's no way to get through?
For 5 hours, Babcock and Wilcox, the designers of the reactor, tried to reach the operators from their headquarters in Virginia.
The designers of the plant down in Lynchburg could not get through under any circumstances, and they had to relay all the information through a regional NRC office in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, to the Unit 1, which is north of the accident, and then a runner would run over to Unit 2 and read the gauge and run back and report this. So the people down here are getting fourth-hand information, which is largely incorrect and certainly incomplete, and they're passing back advice which doesn't make it all the way.
Finally, Wednesday evening, an urgent message from Babcock and Wilcox got through to the control room. Get water moving through the core. As soon as the operators restarted the pumps, temperature and pressure in the reactor dropped and stabilized. 16 hours after it had begun, it appeared the accident was over.
It was the first step in a nuclear nightmare. As far as we know at this hour, no worse than that.
On national television, viewers were assured the situation was under control.
Is probably the worst nuclear reactor accident to date. There was no apparent serious contamination of workers. But a nuclear
In Washington, President Jimmy Carter was watching events closely. A trained nuclear engineer, he knew what could happen if there was damage to the core.